Welcome to Jen and Dan Cut to the Chase. So this is our podcast that we are starting today. Today's our first one. And Jen, what's the main point? What are we doing this podcast for?
Mythbusters, trying to help people get better information. Articles we read that maybe have incomplete information or make us ask some questions that we want to dig into, some fun things we want to talk about, ideas from you guys. So hopefully on social media we'll get to interact and you can let us know some questions you have, or articles you're reading that you've got questions on real estate, houses, anything like that. And yeah, it's a topics show.
Yeah, so I was thinking that today for the first couple of minutes, we could just do a quick introduction of ourselves so that people could know kind of where we're coming from. We're both real estate agents, and we both work in the Portsmouth, New Hampshire area. And I have been in real estate for about 3.5 years. In that time, I've closed about 35 to 40 transactions.
Woo!
And I love working with buyers and sellers. I really love the real estate industry and just wanted to share my experiences, and I constantly taking a look at what's going on in the market, and just wanted to be able to share that with everyone.
Excellent. And I'm relatively new to the real estate world. I transitioned from a career as a professional musician. So I spent 20 years playing French horn and running my own music business, which oddly enough is the same thing as real estate. So it's been a lot of fun, exploring that. And I'm, really into the consumer experience. And, as a homeowner, it was really frustrating to try and get good information. So this is kind of an extension professionally of giving people a better experience as homeowners. So
Awesome.
That's where I'm at. And
Awesome.
shout out, I have triplet boys who are 14, so I do wear a mom hat. So those of you that are parents, you're going to hear me chat about the boys from now on, from time to time. So we can connect on that front as well, because it definitely plays a role in people's lives for sure.
Awesome. So I think the first myth that we had talked about that we just wanted to cover, we hear a lot of people expecting or thinking that that home prices are set by sellers. And that's not necessarily always the case. So we kind of wanted to do a little bit of a discussion on how prices really are sold and how the market is really what contributes to how we get prices, or how realtors help to price homes.
Yeah, I know. I think this is like the trickiest, and I'm gonna not look at you just because otherwise they're gonna look at like my cheek and like my cool earrings. See my cool earring? So the other day in the grocery store, someone was talking to me about how angry they were at real estate agents because, dang it, the real estate agents, they're setting the house prices in our area way too high. I was like, wait. They're like, I don't set people's house prices. They're like, well, yeah, don't the realtors set the home prices? Like, no. And I was like, we should grab coffee, because it's actually a multi-level topic. Like, it depends who you ask where the house price comes from, and the easiest answer is the house price comes from the last person that bought the house. Like, that's what the price was. So if the house was bought 10 years ago, you actually don't know precisely what the house is worth, because no one's bought it recently. So if someone bought it yesterday, that's what that house is worth, is what that person paid for it yesterday. Also, when you're going to sell your house, you're trying to figure out, all right, well, how do I know what to put it on the market for? So, you can look at the other houses like yours, and this is what Dan was talking about, to figure out, all right, I got a 3-bedroom house, 2 bathrooms, we only renovated half the house. So half of it looks like 1980 and the other half of it looks like 2019. So, how many houses that are like that in my neighborhood or in my town have sold, and what's the going price for those? Oh, it's $400,000. All right, great. So that's about where I can put mine on the market for, give or take, because that's about what they're selling for right now, because that's what shoppers are paying for right now. So that's another way to look at it. And then there's the whole home appraisal thing, which is another person's opinion, but it's not even for the shoppers exactly.
Right,
You want to talk about that, Dan? Yeah, explain that opinion of what the house is worth, because a lot of people are like, well, I'm getting my home appraised so I know what my house is worth. But that doesn't solve what your house is worth and how to price your house. You want to tell them about that
Well,
one?
and I think sometimes people confuse a market analysis that a real estate agent will do for you with a bank appraisal, which is how the lender determines that your home is worth what the buyer is willing to pay for it. And in relation to what the buyer is willing to pay for your home is really where prices get set, because a house is the market value is defined as the price that buyers are willing to pay. And I think that that's kind of sometimes where people get a little bit of a misconception that homeowners just pick a number out of thin air, when there's really a lot of detailed analysis and detailed work that we as real estate agents do in order to help determine what the current market value of a home is.
But here's a good point. So we actually, if you're shopping for a house, you actually don't know what happened on the other end. So let's say there's a house in a neighborhood you want to move into and it's listed at $400,000. You don't know if the best real estate agent, walked in that door and the owner's really awesome and open-minded and really kind of thinking about what houses are for sale, what are they selling for, and all of the actual data that makes sense around home prices. Or if that person's like, yeah, I'm selling my house for $400, haven't done a thing to it in 20 years, but this is what we're selling it for. So you don't really know how the seller came up with their house price, which is really a challenge for buyers. So, agents will help out. Being a person who shops a lot, right? You know which grocery store is going to sell you milk at the best price. So, start looking around so this is about what a $400,000 house in this town, this is about right now, about what they are looking like. This is how done they are and what goes along with it. So when you see one that's a lot better than that at that price, you know that it is priced to sell quick. And when you know one that is not in as good a shape, let's just say, you know that it might be overpriced. Obviously, there are professionals to help you with that, but you can figure that out as well. But it's hard to know. It's hard to know how they came up with that price, because some agents might also want to get business just by saying, yeah, you list it, you tell me what you want to sell it for. And that's also not unfair too. If you're a homeowner and you want to put it on the market, and then say, all right, any takers at $450? No, we tried for a month, nobody at $450. All right, let's try $425. Anybody at $425? We've all seen that. And that's a strategy. And it's frustrating, but no wonder people in the grocery store are like, dang you realtors, like you stink. These house prices are crazy around here. But there's a lot of confusion around it, and it's because we don't know where the price comes from. But at the end of the day, the way it gets put on the MLS, where it pops up on any app you're using, is there's a document, a purchase or a listing agreement, and the seller actually has to sign off on what the sales price is going to, the listing price is going to be. So that's not something that is done in like a back corner of some evil real estate office. Let us upprice this one by 25%, and then we sneakily hand it over to the seller, to dupe the public. Like, that's just not what's happening. So there's always some kind of conversation about it. A lot of times it's a back and forth, and a lot of times it's this is what I'm selling my house for, put it on that line. And the agent will either say, yeah, sure, or they'll say, yeah, I am not comfortable selling your house for that because I can't sell your house for that for whatever reason. So, go find someone else to sell your house. So that's one side of it. We have Dan's point about the bank appraisal, which is really just for the bank to recoup their money if you don't pay your mortgage. So the bank appraisal really doesn't tell you what the house is worth, because the only point is to say, if you don't pay your mortgage, what does the bank think they can get get back for their money? And then there's this really confusing thing around here, especially in New Hampshire, which is the tax assessment. You want to talk about that, Dan?
Sure. Well, tax assessments, sometimes you'll hear buyers coming in and they'll say, well, this property is assessed at $260, but you're selling it for $340. And tax assessments are an algorithm that are done by the town's assessor, and there's certain terminology that's different in every town that kind of determines how a property is assessed. And lots of times assessors don't ever get a chance to go into the property. So most of the time the assessors are taking a walk on the outside. They don't get a chance to see what updates have been done, or if there's any recent renovations or anything like that. Unless a permit was pulled, then they know that the thing has been done, but they haven't had a chance to go in and take a look at it. And no seller or no homeowner has to let the assessor into their home. They don't have to let them in. So assessments, when we're trying to price homes, are a good baseline for us to say, okay, most of the time houses in this market or in this town are selling for, say, 10 to 15% over the assessed value, or 20 or 30% depending on what the different towns are. So it does give a good baseline for us, and that's, we look at so many different things when we're going to price properties, that there are all these different data points that we use, like assessed value and price per square foot and comparable homes on them that are on the market or that have sold recently, in order to come up with the home's value, rather than just throwing a number out of thin air.
Yeah, I got it. I think as a person just out there shopping for a house, I think one thing that's confusing is that town to town, the property tax rate is different. And it gets confusing because you just look at a house and you're just like, oh, this house in this town versus this house in this town, pretty house, pretty house. And the property taxes are different. So when you go to look at the price, if you're not paying attention, one house might actually be overpriced and the other might be priced just right if you're looking at it based on the tax assessment in terms of, as you were saying, the percentage. Most of the homes are selling at 25% over the tax assessment. Because some towns have really high property taxes, some have a much lower property tax, and some have really caught up with their assessments, like they do them really current, and others are a few years behind. So
I think sometimes, depending on how big the town is, and how many houses that they have to assess, can determine how often they're out doing that. I feel like most of the time it's about every 5 years, though, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think some towns, just because they need the money, are assessing a lot more frequently. So yeah, is that confusing enough for you? I mean, I think we listed like 7 ways home prices are looked at. But to just circle back to the beginning, no, realtors don't set the house price. The person selling the house sets the price they're listing it for. But really, what your home is...
set it.
Yeah, the buyer, the person that's paying for it, once it's paid for, that's what the house is worth. Which really stinks, because we want an answer. We want the sticker with the little price gun from the grocery store, $5.99, and that's what it's worth. But it's always changing, it's always moving, and there is no person that's going to give you an answer that's identical to the next person. So it's really disconcerting. You always feel like someone's trying to put one over on you, someone knows something that you don't, or someone's preventing you from knowing something that you should. It's really uncomfortable, I think. And I think that's why I got that comment in the grocery store. You realtors and your pricing. You know, so ask a lot of questions. You know, look around, ask really detailed information of the professionals you know. In my town, houses just like mine, you know, very close to this date, you know, what are they selling for, you know? And I would just encourage you to be open to the answer, because I think our news headlines, you know, it's always polarizing. Hot, hot, hot housing market, or doom and gloom, you know, headed for disaster, we're, you know, headed for a bust. And it's almost never either of those polar ends. And, you know, every situation is really different. So, you know, just take a breath, pour a cup of coffee, and like get a handle on your specific situation. Any other thoughts on that?
No, I think that pretty much covered it. So should we move on to some of we found a few articles that were in the news this week, or the past, you know, week and a half or so, that we just wanted to share. The first one that I had noticed, which I thought was pretty interesting, the ultimate smart home, 5 devices that save money. So this was a Realtor magazine article from May 30th, and we can link up the article in the show notes and on the YouTube page, so that if people want to read the article themselves, they're more than welcome to. But so people love technology, and there are lots of reasons to have technology other than just the fact that it's cool. I mean, the way these technology the way that these technological things that you put in your home work, they can save you hundreds of dollars a year. So there were five devices in this article that they were talking about. So the first one that they were talking about are thermostats. So a lot of people have those Nest thermostats. Those are really the big ones. But there are others, of course, as well, that can learn your habits of when you're home and turn your heat up and down, or your air conditioning up and down for you. Do you have one of those, Jen?
I actually don't yet, but I think the ability to use it on your phone, if you forgot, or let's say the day gets hotter than you thought, you can crank up the AC right before you come home.
True.
I think that's awesome.
Yep.
One thing to remember about those, if you're gonna sell your house, it's attached to your house. So anything that's like attached to your house, like screws into the wall, like your ceiling fans, chandeliers, all of that stuff, that goes with the house. So if you want to keep your Nest, you gotta tell your real estate agent to list it as things that I am taking with me when I move. Otherwise, your Nest, and yes, there is a way to reprogram them from the new owner, for the new homeowner. So you have to kind of think about that. It's opened like a new can of worms. Technology has opened a new can of worms for when you sell your house. Anyway, what else do we have other than Nest?
Other than Nest, we have smart switches, sensors, and bulbs. So these smart sensors, switches, and bulbs, they have the potential to save 7 to 27% of a home's overall lighting energy use, which is according to a study by the American Council for Energy Efficient Economy. I personally, all of my bulbs here at my house are energy efficient bulbs, and they're smart bulbs too. So actually, when Jen first got here, I turned them on with my phone, and she was a little bit surprised.
Am I losing my mind? There's one right up overhead, and it was like changing different like shades, and I was like, what's going on? Am I losing my mind? He has mood lighting right in this room.
But the bulbs themselves are a little bit more on the expensive side to purchase, but my electric bill is never more than $50. Wow. And that it just, that saves me quite a bit of money. Of course, I'm sure now that I'm going to be using the air conditioner here in the summer, it's probably going to go up a little bit more, but
that's amazing.
It is. It's really great. But so number 3 is energy monitoring. So energy monitoring systems, such as there's one called Sense, you can identify appliances that are quietly using or adding to your monthly utility bills, like leaving things plugged in, can drain your, or things still use energy as they're plugged in, even when they're not on. So this can kind of determine where you're using the most energy, and actually it even says in here that always on device consumption may account for up to 20% of your energy use. So keeping computers plugged in or microwaves, that type of thing. So those Sense energy monitoring systems are really cool as well.
Yeah, and those can be really fun if you have younger people in your house. They teach a lot about the environment in school, and so getting one of those and making it a family project can be really cool to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, kids always like the technology stuff.
Yeah, and they're like, all right, let's see how much energy we wasted, and then let's stop wasting it.
See how much we can save. So number 4 is smart plugs. So it says instead of powering down completely, many modern household electronics enter a standby mode, and they continue to draw power even when not in use, like I just kind of mentioned in the last one. So these smart plugs allow them to communicate with other devices and get updates and load faster. If they're not using the smart devices, that allows them to load faster. But it's a complete waste. So the new smart plugs and outlets cut the power completely so that you're able to turn that off. And I had a few of those as well for my light bulbs before I had got the energy saving ones too,
awesome.
which are cool.
That's a really neat idea.
Yeah. And the last one, which I think is really cool, and I hadn't even thought of this, was a smart sprinkler system. So, I mean, I think we know when you have irrigation systems that they are very expensive to run, but they keep your lawn looking beautiful. So these smart sprinkler systems, really, I think they can put them on at like energy efficient times. They adjust for local weather and can be monitored via your smartphone. So really allows you to customize your watering technology so that it's as energy efficient as possible.
That's awesome. I love that. We'll make sure we link to that article so you can check it out. So what do you say, Dan? We cut to the chase. 2 different topics today.
Yeah.
Is that enough?
Absolutely. I think that was definitely a great way to kick it off. So we're going to be coming at you every week. What day are we talking? What day were we saying?
We're going to stay tuned on that. What we did is we tried to just dive in and let's get started, let's record, and so instead of waiting for the whole perfect layout setup, we're flying by the seat of our pants just because we think the information is useful for you guys. And that's our goal. So we're going to sort ourselves out. We're going to get all this together. Me, not him, obviously. We'll get back with you on the social media. We're going to get organized on the Instagram, the Facebook. You'll be able to find us podcast, YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, all of that.
Everywhere.
And reach out, topics, questions, and we'll have our launch date and all of that. Thanks for tuning in on the inaugural first episode of
Jen and Dan Cut to the Chase.